It's time for 41 is the Mic, a weekly Chiefs podcast with Nick Jacobs of KSHB 41 and Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. 41 is the Mic starts now.
Yes, welcome everyone to another episode of 41 is the Mic. I am Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest alongside group installation enthusiast Nick Jacobs from KSHB 41. Nick, I say that because we got to see a group installation this week. We actually got to see football.
Yeah, we just can't talk about who's in what group because it's a closed practice, Matt.
A closed practice. Can't wait till the season ticket holders get out there and we get to loosen up the rules a little bit.
Do we though? I don't know if we do.
I do because there's just here's how the sausage gets made, folks. Is that there's a little disagreement about what's a public practice and what's not a public practice, and I'm just saying if there's people from the general public in the stands, it's a public practice.
But they're season ticket holder members, Matt. Okay.
Are they members of the media? Are they scouts? Are they special VIPs? Is it Paul Rudd? No.
I don't know.
I mean, he could. But you know what? If he's a season ticket holder that comes out there and is sitting in the stands, it's not on the sidelines. It's a public practice. That's all I'm saying.
Don't worry, Matt. There will still be podcasts interpreting the news and notes of closed practices or potentially open practices based on 11 media members that were watching practice this past week.
Well, there's that.
Should we name the list off of who was actually physically there watching practice to compare notes with what's being done show-wise?
I probably could rattle off everybody who was there, and it was actually a surprising number.
Yeah, no, it was a big number.
We were probably like a dozen of us, right?
It was almost a dozen, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and that's a lot. I mean, because usually I would say it's like more like 6 to 8. So
yes,
that was a lot.
You and I were two of them.
We were two of them. One of the few places that you can go anywhere to find two people who were at practice and give you two perspectives on what we saw on Thursday at the third OTA that the Chiefs held.
The first one we could witness, but the third one overall.
Third overall, first one we could witness. There were, I believe, actually more media members than there were people absent from practice. So yes, that's pretty good ratio, actually. You've at this point probably seen most of the names and discussed them. Travis Kelce had been in OTAs earlier in the week, but he was not there on Thursday, not injury related, any of that nature. Trey Smith, not at OTAs, wasn't there on Thursday. Right tackle Juwan Taylor also in that group. He did have some work done in the offseason. So I was going to be surprised if we saw him at all, Nick, during OTAs. Hollywood Brown, Justin Ross were a couple of the receivers who were not there. Jared Wiley was in attendance. He just simply was on the sidelines watching from afar, coming back from that torn ACL. Yeah. Ethan Driscoll was not in attendance, didn't get a reason. But Andy Reid did say that, in mentioning it with like Rashee Rice, who was not out there on the field, there have been several players battling illness. So there could be a couple of those guys that are on the illness list because Andy Reid specifically said, Nick, that when he came out was like, I'm not going to get into injuries and who's here and who's not here. And then, of course, we had a bunch of questions about players that he then would say, oh, well, yeah, Rashee's just sick today. And we got a little bit of info from him. Christian Fulton and Josh Simmons did take part in a limited basis in practice. I hope there's not anybody I'm forgetting, Nick. Anybody you can think of that we haven't discussed?
No, sorry. I had just so you know, and for people wondering when they're watching me, I had a spider that was going behind the screen. He climbed up on this lamp and he was staring at me, watching and listening to the show. And so I had to use the ultra duster to so he didn't have a chance of jumping at me.
I feel like there's a couple of things I should note here. And that one is that if you are a fan of the show and you're listening and we see you in public or anything, Nick will not probably use a can of spray dust, air dust.
That will never happen.
So don't be worried.
I'm just sorry. That's so weird that this happened. Because the spider's literally walking behind and then he climbs up here and he's just literally staring at me the entire time while you were talking and running off who was or wasn't at practice. Even spiders listen to 41 is the mic.
Maybe the spider was at practice. I don't know. Maybe there were 3 of us on the podcast who were at practice.
Clearly want to be part of the show. I don't know where he's at right now. He might bite me in a little bit. We'll find out.
The one crazy note I will throw out there, Nick, is that I believe in some form everybody on the defense was there, which is super unusual for OTAs.
Yes. Now, I'm not going to lie. My concern is, do you think it's going to bite me now?
Oh, no. I mean, this spider is absolutely going to be out for revenge now. But
wow. And you're gonna give him every opportunity for that to happen.
I'm not planning on it, but I mean, I see why you may have your head on a swivel the rest of the podcast.
Yeah, dude. You're not kidding, buddy. Yeah. So, yeah, ask your question again while I double check underneath the desk.
I was just saying everybody in the defense was in attendance at OTAs in some form or fashion, which is super unusual. Chris Jones was out there. I mean, everybody was out there.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's one of the few times Chris hasn't had a contract, issue whenever he's shown up. He was fine last year and then this year, obviously. But yeah, I mean, defense, yeah, from what I remember, that most, if not all of them were there. So they had that going for him.
Yeah. So let's get into it a little bit. I mean, we did mention Josh Simmons, and that's obviously been one of the biggest stories of this. And the bottom line, I mean, is that he's out there. He's doing pretty much the exact same things that we saw during rookie minicamp that we talked about. I mean, on the one hand, Andy Reid's acknowledging, hey, he's ahead of schedule. And when you talk about, I mean, he's not quite 8 months removed from surgery yet. So even doing what he's doing right now is definitely ahead of schedule. I mean, you'd expect this to be more like the 9 to 12 month range of what he's doing, but we're still a long ways from finding out just what he is and if he is anywhere close to his true self. And we're not going to know that, at best, we're not going to know until August when the pads come on. And secondly, we might not know it until the regular season when, if and when he finally gets to see some action.
Yeah, I mean, for Josh, seeing him out there, he was pulling and moving into space, and I thought he looked pretty good during those times. And he's doing that during the not necessarily walkthrough, but when they were executing some of the playbook and everything, or installing, as you would call it. So, I mean, getting to see him kind of work out in space, I thought was very promising. And then obviously, I mean, he's continually looking better in his kick step. But like you said, I mean, they're not necessarily doing anything in shoulder pads or contact or having a dry block or anything of that nature to be able to really kind of lock in on that. So, I mean, that's the question, like you said, it's going to linger until training camp late in July and early August to be able to find out on that front.
Yeah, next step is going to be for him to be out on the field when there's a defense on the field. No pads, but just a defense. And we'll see if that happens. Chiefs have 10 more practices to go between OTAs and the minicamp, so we'll see what happens there. And then, of course, obviously, the pads and getting things more physical and ramping up. So a little bit more of a process. Let's be real, this is, though, a passing camp, Nick. So normally we don't learn a lot about the guys in the middle, in the trenches. What we're here for, Nick, is for the quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, tight ends a little bit, maybe defensive backs. These are the guys that are supposed to either impress us or dismay us.
I can tell, Matt, you don't have Spidey out for revenge, dude. You're calm, cool, and collected.
I am unaware.
Well, I'm over here on a swivel, man, just waiting.
I have never seen anyone as nervous as you are right now. I've never seen you this nervous.
Well, man, because he was in launching distance. I'm not kidding you, man. I hadn't seen a spider in formation attack like that in quite some time. So.
You look like you're Josh Simmons waiting for, an edge rusher.
Yeah, dude. I'm just waiting for them to set me up and have to see that inside backer coming. Yeah, no, that's what's happening, Matt. That's what's going on here in real life right now.
Oh, dear. Well, we said last week that one of the things that actually I think the number one thing at the top of your list was to see, what was the tempo, what was the intensity, what was kind of the command of Patrick Mahomes in OTAs. And I felt like, at least from my impression, Nick, we saw Patrick Mahomes in Patrick Mahomes mode.
Yeah, with Patrick, since he didn't have Hollywood Brown out there and Rashee Rice was not out there either, there was plenty of opportunity for him to work with other receivers. So him and Worthy picked up where they left off in terms of chemistry. I thought he had a really good day with Thornton. I thought that actually had the chemistry between those two looked very eerily similar to what he had with Hollywood Brown last year in terms of being able to trust to toss it up there. Thornton was going to run under it, go get it, make the catch and not give a defender a chance to make a play on the football. So I felt like day 3 of the chemistry between those two was really, really promising. And that's where it doesn't matter to me what if Thornton had good or bad days before that, those were building up to what we got to see. So, I mean, we got to see one day of practice, but we got to see what they may have done chemistry-wise over the past couple days to build up to that day 3 of practice whenever we were able to sit there and witness that. So on that front, I thought Mahomes built – I felt like Mahomes was able to lay the groundwork chemistry-wise with Thornton and with Jalen Royals in that practice that we were able to watch, both from a 7-on-7 and team perspective, because Mahomes threw some contested catches to Jalen Royals that one in the back of the end zone that I know has kind of been put out publicly where he had to kind of leap up and make a grab on that one. But Mahomes trusted to throw it in a spot, and Royals was made sure he was there to be able to make that play. And then I know there was a couple others where there was a defender in the vicinity, and Patrick trusted to throw it in there and test out and see where he's at ability-wise to be able to figure out what he can and can't do and where. So you want to continue to see that between Patrick and Royals to see if that can be another player down the road avenue-wise to where in a clutch situation over the middle or in between the numbers, 10, 15 yards, is Royals a guy that Mahomes can build that with, like he did with Juju Smith-Schuster and like he did with Rashee Rice and like he did for years on end with Travis Kelce. So that's where I was encouraged to see that, and I'm hoping to continue to see that with each passing week. Obviously, pads are not involved in it, so there's not as much physicality as there would be coming off the line from time to time. So, I mean, that's a piece of it that we'll see down the road from a puzzle perspective. But I mean, you have to analyze off base what you see, and that's what we were able to see. But I also have to recognize the factors that weren't involved and that could alter it whenever training camp rolls around. Nico Remigio, I thought Patrick really wanted to test some stuff out with him and push the ball downfield, and it seemed like there just wasn't the connection. Remigio just doesn't have that extra gear, and that's not a knock on him. That's just the reality of it. So it looked like an overthrow on Patrick's part a couple different times, but it wasn't, because he placed it in the same kind of spot that he did for Thornton and some of the other guys who were able to come up with it. It's just I just don't think from a vertical perspective Remigio has that same gear that Thornton has for Mahomes to get the ball to him. But I've talked too long, Matt, and you take the floor.
Yeah, you mentioned the Remigio, and that to me is, you're talking about just maybe 0.2 of a speed difference in the 40. Tyquan Thornton is just as fast as Xavier Worthy. And those two might have to settle it in camp one night to see who's the fastest, because I think they're having some friendly jousting right now over who is. But also, Tyquan Thornton's 6'2", and Nico Remigio is 5'9". Nico did have one great catch on a throw from Gardner Minshew, but it's kind of the Nico kind of catch. He has to kind of extend himself and really push himself, whereas Tyquan Thornton's got 5 inches on him and a little bit of more speed. So a ball that could be in the exact same place, Tyquan Thornton can catch in stride. And for Nico, he's just going to probably not get a lot of yards after catch if he makes the catch. That's just the difference between, speed and height and size. It's for every player. One thing that stood out to me, Nick, and I'm surprised that you didn't say anything. We haven't talked about this at all, and I figured that it would be making you extremely happy. I did not see a single quarterback scramble in that practice. And there was two things, Nick, is that one, it led to maybe one of the best plays on offense, and it led to maybe the best play on the defense.
So technically Patrick did scramble a couple times.
He scrambled, but he got rid of the football.
Right. He at least got rid of the football.
Yes.
Those two times. But yes, no. Yeah, there was one where Patrick started, he was going to take off running. He looked like he's going to take off running, and then he just shoveled past it and kind of floated it in an upward trajectory. But Trent McDuffie read it, jumped on it, and made a nice diving interception off the Mahomes throw. And like, the play itself is over. In a real game, Patrick doesn't do that, but he can really explore the room, as we like to call it, and so that gives him the opportunity to kind of test the boundaries and everything. He's able to do that. And then there was the other time, if it's the one I'm thinking of, where he did the behind the backs pass to Brashard Smith there in red zone work. And like Brashard did not, he was not expecting it. And he's like, oh, he caught it. He caught it, but you could see the startledness and surprise whenever the ball got thrown. He's like, oh, all right. Well, and then, so like now going forward, it's like the same thing Carson Steele kind of got to deal with last year. Brashard got to kind of experience this year, and he's like, oh, all right, this is what we're doing. I gotcha. But going back to the Remigio thing you were talking about. Yeah, for people that don't know, he was near the sidelines. It was a route that it kind of ended at that point, and if I remember correctly, it was Gardner Minshew who was throwing at the time.
Yep.
And he lofted it up there for Remigio to go make a play on it. So what Matt's kind of talking about there earlier is like Thornton and the way he does it. Thornton's very confident in looking, tracking, and catching over his shoulder. Like he totally believes that. Remigio maybe could have if he wanted to, but instead he rotated towards the football and then made a leaping catch off of it and got both feet. He either got the hip down or he would have got both feet down whenever it was a game. But it was an impressive leaping catch that he made. Jumping up and then falling backwards type of leap. So just to give people visual imagery on that one. That's the best way I can probably describe those two. But Matt, back to you.
Well, I was going to mention the Brashard Smith one, and Jalen Royals, the one that you mentioned, was the other one that stood out to me, because even though I was in 7-on-7, that was a case of, hey, nobody was open. Mahomes waits, buys some time, lets the receiver scramble and run for places, and that's when Royals, wasn't, same type of thing, but, for those of you, remember like the Chris Conley catch that, he had against the 49ers back in, I guess that was 2018, that Mahomes made that throw. Not identical, but similar, in that Royals did the right thing. He kept moving. He's just running along the back of the end zone. Mahomes sees it and is like, okay, I'm going to put this ball where either my guy gets it or nobody gets it. And Royals elevated on that ball. I mean, he has got some hops, Nick. So that was impressive to me for a lot of reasons. I mean, one, because the rookie didn't give up. I mean, he already knows that, because this was an extended play. I mean, this, like I said, it was 7-on-7, but Mahomes probably held the ball for at least 7 or 8 seconds. I mean, it was quite a while that he was back there. And, so for Royals to, one, have the presence of mind to continue running, continue trying to get open, going to the right place, and then 2, having the physical skills to make the play, it was pretty impressive. But again, it goes back to a little bit, and any good quarterback's going to do that in 7-on-7, but even in 11-on-11, Minshew and Bailey Zappi, Chris Oladoka, nobody threw the ball away, Nick, and nobody scrambled. I was very, very proud of them.
Well, there was a couple times Bailey Zappi probably should have thrown the ball away. Because he tossed it right into the heart of the defense where there was no window and there was no opportunity, and that would have been picked in the game had that been really. He forced a couple there inside the 10. So but I will say, in terms of Gardner Minshew, like, he's a step up over what they had with Wentz last year. In terms of the zip on the football, the velocity to it, how he's seeing it, where he's placing it, like he's got a much better rhythm out of both under center and out of shotgun than what Carson Wentz had, because Carson Wentz was sailing passes last year. In OTAs and 7-on-7, like in training camp, like he would throw passes too high to where what Nico Remigio is doing, having a leap for a football, would have been the norm for a lot of receivers, and they would have gotten hit significantly. So with Minshew, I see much more promise at the backup position that I think fits the offense overall in terms of what he can be. Because I mean, dude, he was connected with Brownlee on a handful of passes, and he had it right there on point for him, and he was anticipating, really, really well for both him and Remigio and so on. So I really liked what I saw from Gardner in terms of, if Mahomes is unable to play a game, I see a guy in Gardner Minshew that skill set wise they can win with, versus last year with Wentz. I wasn't as confident with because he needs play action to be able to mechanically be in rhythm. Minshew doesn't need that. He's just there. He's like, all right, give me the ball, let's let it rip. So he just got a different mentality about it.
Yeah, and I talked about this beforehand, and I feel like it's, whether it's part of the Chiefs' intentions or not, although, basically Patrick Mahomes says that it's that Andy Reid's challenging him this year to push the ball more downfield, to establish the underneath game rather than the other way around. And, I think that's obviously based on their belief that they're going to have some speed, that they're going to, be luckier and have some healthy receivers this year. But this might be, Nick, I mean, maybe their fastest receiver group since at least 18-19 kind of time range.
I mean, it'll be in the ballpark, because I mean, we'll see where Rice is at when he's back, and then I mean Hollywood, Hollywood's in the ballpark. Worthy's the fastest of the bunch, and Thornton's gonna easily be in the top 3 speed wise, if not top 2. And then I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that I think Badger vertically is faster than people probably anticipate. Just the ins and outs of overall route running, I'm not sure where he's at in terms of over the middle and kind of cutting and the explosiveness off that on that front. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential there in terms of what they have athletically for this offense.
Yeah, and this is a compliment both for Thornton and for Gardner Minshew. But honestly, even though Thornton had some really good chemistry with Mahomes, his best play of the day, I felt, came with Minshew, and maybe Minshew's best throw was a deep ball that Thornton caught absolutely in stride down the right sideline. Would have been probably most likely a touchdown in real life. But that's, to me, that's on both of them. I mean, one, that's the ability of Gardner to be able to throw the ball downfield, to get in front of a speed receiver like that. And two, Thornton in the right place at the right time to get the ball and get it in stride. That's on both of them. You can't do it without the two of them being in sync. And the fact that, one, Thornton was able to do this with multiple quarterbacks. He had, I think he even caught a catch from Zappy too. So, he was working with everybody and seemed to have chemistry. And Minshew, for his third practice, looked really comfortable out there. I'm curious what you thought about the running back situation, because, we get to see a little bit from the backs out of this camp. Kind of wonder what were your impressions from what you saw?
Yeah, obviously Brashard Smith's speed will pop out on the field whenever you see it. The thing that surprised me the most, though, was how built Elijah Mitchell is. Just to where he can, size-wise, strength-wise, like he's got the ability to be able to take some hits and be able to not only get up from them, but not get broken in half type of thing. So he's got a good combination of size and speed that you don't realize until you see in person, and you're like, okay, wow, okay, because he's not as big as Kareem Hunt, but he's kind of like the ideal in between Pacheco and Kareem, if that makes sense for people, to where he's got better speed than both of them, but he's got the size in between them to where it gives a nice change of pace between the power running style and what he can potentially do. But I mean, yeah, him and Smith were kind of the two that popped out at various points that I'm curious to see more of them down the road, but I'm especially curious to see them whenever they put shoulder pads on during camp and are in 9-on-7.
Yeah, and this is, I try not to get too impressed by these things because it is, I mean, it's a passing camp. It's designed for the receivers and ball catchers to show off. You can't hit anybody, so nobody's worried about that. But if you wanted to be dazzled by one-handed catches, you were dazzled by a lot of them, because Kareem had one kind of late in practice that was down the sideline. He just kind of juggled it a little bit, but hauled it in with one hand. Xavier Worthy had just a dazzling one-handed catch.
Yeah, so that first one you're talking about with Kareem, Mahomes is rolling out to his right there, and then he does another one of those kind of shovel passes, kind of doing a touch loft to it. He's not fastballing it in there, so that kind of surprised Kareem. So then, yeah, Kareem had to kind of bobble it to himself and did a really good job with it and came down with that catch. And then the Worthy one that you're referencing, I don't remember. I'm assuming it was Mahomes throwing, but I don't remember offhand.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So then the ball was Worthy's running a crossing route over the middle on it, and then the ball was a little bit behind. It was a little bit behind him, and then Worthy just like you gotta imagine he's going full speed right now, and then he just flat out just puts his right arm back, palms the football, catches it with his hand, then secures it in, and then just continues to keep on running just effortlessly. Like, yeah, it was an insanely athletic play what he did there. And just the concentration you have to have, the reaction you have to have, how quickly you have to have it, because there's a lot of other receivers that, yeah, they may reach back, but they would have reached back at the wrong time, and because that football is a fastball. So for him to be able to catch that fastball behind him in the way that he did, like that was one of those highlights of it. And I'm sure people are going to be like, where's the video at on it? These are close practices. We were already done shooting a solid hour before that event occurred.
I'm surprised that one hasn't. I mean, they got plenty of time. They're not back on the field till Wednesday, so there's a few more days for 65 toss power trap to put that out there on social media. They may still find a light of day. But yeah,
there may be parts where they're not shooting either.
And can be, and that you're right. I mean, that was a high, hard throw behind the receiver, and Worthy's able to make the play and kept on running. Here's how you know a play is really, really good in a practice like this, Nick, is if both the offense and the defense are impressed. Yeah. Because teams will make plays, and one side will be really excited and the other one won't. I mean, there'll be a catch, and the offense will be like, hey, that's we're going crazy. Defense will make a play, all defensive guys. This was the one play where guys on both sidelines were like, whoa.
Yeah. You heard a lot of whoas and wows out of guys on both sides whenever that one occurred.
Yeah.
And so for people that are trying to envision this, I want you to just envision it's not, his hand's not up, it's just out. So the ball's getting thrown in that rib to hip area out, and his arm is extended out to catch it. So that's what, for those people wanting to envision it, that's how that rolls.
Yeah. Very, very athletic play. I mentioned at the top of the show that, hey, this isn't a practice. This isn't a time for offensive and defensive lines to really show you anything. Right. But you do learn a little bit about what the Chiefs think of some of these guys and what their plans are. And there was a couple things I wanted to ask you about, because one was on the defensive side.
I already know one of the ones you're going to ask.
I bet you know about this one, because we even talked about it a little bit at practice. I think Omar Norman Lott had more snaps on Thursday than he had all of his college career.
I don't know about his entire college career, but definitely probably 2 to 3 games, yes.
Yeah, they are trying to build that young man's stamina, aren't they?
Yeah, I would. If I were them, I would put him out there relentlessly to get him up to that point, because you're going to need him to be able to compete in a training camp practice. So I think they're trying to get him ready for training camp to be able to go through that level of it. And doesn't mean he would play that many snaps whenever the season actually rolls around, but you want him to be able to build up that if he has to be forced into that situation because of injury down the road. So yeah, no, I mean he yes, he was out there a lot, and you got very familiar with 55 out there on the football field.
Yeah, and I mean, and that even applied to just drills because when it was just the defensive line was doing drills, he was basically going through the line every single time, and when they had extra times, and when they had, I noticed that there were even moments when, like they had all four doing drills and working on twists and stunts and all those kind of things. That I mean, he's with the ones, twos, the threes. I mean, they were getting him work everywhere. And it is worth noting to me because I mean, if you're hoping that Omar Norman Lott is a starter, and maybe he's playing alongside Chris Jones, consider this. Chris Jones played 771 defensive snaps last year in the regular season. Tershawn Wharton was number 2 with 667. Last year, Omar Norman Lott played 225. The most he ever played in his college career was 301, and that was 4 years ago when he was at Arizona State. No. So, I mean, he has been a rotational player. I mean, the Chiefs didn't draft him number 2 to be a rotational player. I mean, they want him to be a starter. They want him to be a guy who can play, 40 snaps a game, not 20 snaps a game. So, no. They're well on their way towards that. Just curious, anybody else, I know that stood out to you, even though he only had one catch, the one catch that our patron saint of undrafted free agents, Jacob Rainingstool, his one catch, it was at least impressive to me because it was in traffic. It was a contested ball, and he did exactly what we saw during rookie mini camp. He used his hands right, he used his body right, did everything to make a good catch for one play, but it was a one play that at least impressed me. Is there anybody else that flashed for you in the practice that maybe we haven't talked about?
Not that I can think of offhand. I think I've hit most of the parts because like you talked about, I mean, it's a passing camp, so quarterback to receivers and quarterback to tight end and quarterback to running backs from a passing perspective, that's kind of where you're going to see most of that wheelhouse. And linebackers are hoping to be able to make a play on some of that stuff, and they may pop because of it. And then you're kind of waiting to see what a corner safety can do on that front. And if they can kind of get the best of somebody in red zone work or, maybe in the 7-on-7 or something of that nature. But yeah, no, I mean, for the most part, I didn't have anything else that popped out to me other than what we've talked about.
And I should have put a bow on this when I was talking about Omar Norman Lott, but over on the offensive side, talking about, just knowing what the Chiefs and finding out what the Chiefs think of guys right now. I mean, there wasn't really anything surprising to us. Andy Reid talked about the fact, Jalen Moore is playing left tackle right now. They're going to see what they've got there. Kingsley, Suamataia, and Mike Caliendo competing for that left guard spot, obviously with Trey Smith not there. Both of them get to get reps right now. Without Jawan Taylor right now, I mean, it's pretty obvious Wanya Morris would be your swing tackle. It's early though. I mean, we've seen plenty of times that that kind of usage changes from OTAs by training camp and even by the beginning of the season. But at least you get a little bit of a sense about where the Chiefs are thinking of guys right now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see as the weeks pass to where we can't talk about what rotation they're in and where they're at. We'll just have to see. I don't know. I
very carefully made sure, we talked about all the things that Andy Reid at least acknowledged. So
I've got a feeling this guy is going to be in the left hemisphere of a line. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, like, I don't really... Other than getting to see what Josh Simmons looks like movement-wise and how he's doing from a knee perspective after, each rep and kind of is he favoring anything or anything like that? Or can you tell he's kind of working out the knee and everything and that nature? Other than that, I typically there's not much that from an O-line perspective that you can be able to kind of gauge too much on. So that's why I may look at it, but I don't put a ton of stock into it right now.
There was one other thing that at least I noticed, and it's a small thing, but I thought it was of note and it was interesting. And in my notebook over at Chiefs Digest, if you want to go check that out, and all 2,300 some odd words that I decided to throw in there. But, last year, and maybe I should go back to 21 through 23, because when the Chiefs had Ken Flagel on staff for Steve Spagnuolo, Flagel was his right-hand man. I mean, that was the guy who did a lot of things to just take some stuff off the plate for Steve Spagnuolo. I always called him the shadow coordinator, because he was basically the second team defensive coordinator. It allowed Spags to do what he likes to do, which is to split up in the first team and second team and have somebody, because, Flagel would run the second team and do all the drills there while Spags is working with the ones. This camp, they did that. Except, Alex Whittingham last year was the kind of second guy. He was the guy who was picking up some of those duties from Ken Flagel. Not all of them. They kind of spread them around, but he picked up some of those. But I noticed in this camp that, they were doing that now, but they had 3 guys doing that. And Matt House was the number 2 guy. He was doing a lot of what Whittingham did last year, while Whittingham's now was working with some of the 3s, Spags is with the 1s. Chiefs brought in Matt House to be a senior defensive assistant. That was his title. Ken Flagel's title was outside linebackers coach, because they were just kind of putting him somewhere on the roster on the staff. I'm not sure that he coached the linebackers as much as he just did. He coached a little bit of everything. But I think we're seeing Matt House has been brought in here. This is kind of role I think that Matt House is coming in here for. He is to be Steve Spagnuolo's right-hand man. That's at least the impression that I got from what we saw on Thursday. Crazy?
All I can say is, I guess time will tell on that front, because I don't think Spagnuolo's going anywhere. So
I'm not saying it's like a sign that Spags is going anywhere or anything like that, but it just seemed like, whether it was just like Spags missed having a guy like Flagel around to take some of the stuff off his plate, and and House has obviously been a DC in the past, so having that kind of knowledge around and familiar with your defense too. I don't know. It's starting to feel like that's more of a significant maybe coaching staff addition than maybe we were, really acknowledging during the offseason. But
if they perform better on defense, then yes. If they don't, then it's just
if they're better, it's Matt House's credit. If they're worse, it's Matt House's blame. So
it won't be his blame. It'd just be that it's not as triumphant as it could potentially be, I guess.
Well, we've got another report about the OTAs coming at you on the next episode of 41 is the Mic, because the Chiefs are going to be out there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday will be the day open to the media. So you'll be hearing from us then, assuming that we're both going to be able to be out there, barring any conflicts, Nick. So we'll both be able to give you our impressions of this week's OTA work. Still 3 more weeks of this. We've got OTAs this week and next week, and then the following week, the 17th through the 19th, will be the mini camp. So we've got 3 more weeks of football to talk about before everybody goes on vacation. Not us, but everybody else goes on vacation.
Yeah, we'll have some topics. Don't worry. I've been thinking out the topics. I got them mapped out for us.
Oh, we'll always have things to talk about. So,
yes, Matt, this is true.
And just to put another bow on a topic, any more words of the Spiders? You seem very calm right now.
I thought he was crawling on me at one point, but it was not the case. But I mean, I'm gonna do a little recon here in a minute after we're done, and just check out a couple more spots. I think he took the hint and decided to exit stage. Well, I helped him exit stage right, technically, with the ultimate duster. But we'll keep tabs, because this wasn't a brown recluse. I don't know what it would be called. I don't know if they're a wolf spider or what they were, but the dude was staring me down from the spotlight over here. Like he was watching me the entire time, and if I moved my hand, he moved. So I'm telling you, like I would like to think he was just a fan. But then the next question is, how did you get into my house? But I don't know, man. I like he was watching it. It was creepy. That's all I can say, Matt.
Well, and as long as we're acknowledging fans, you've got the spider. Shout out to Josh who said hello to me at Rancho Grande this week. I mean, I appreciate that people enjoy the podcast, Nick. That's all I'm saying. Thank you very much.
Oh, 100%. Just I don't know. I'm researching the spider now because I've seen the spider before in other, like my grandparents' houses and stuff like that. So I just want to know what level of spider it is now.
I mean, if you have the time, we might really need you to drop by the Q&A this week to answer all questions about the spider.
I don't know, Matt. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so it looked. I'm not saying he was, but he looked very eerily similar to what they call a black jumping spider. That's why I thought he. Yeah, dude. He looked a lot like a black jumping spider. That's why I didn't know if he was loading up.
Ooh.
The angle he was at the perfect angle to potentially, essentially come at me, bro. That's what was gonna happen.
I mean, I've seen these spiders around. So
I thought about taking a photo with my phone over here, but people are gonna be like, "Why is Nick doing that?" While Matt's talking.
That's a creepy looking spider. Is all I'm gonna say.
I'm not gonna be hurtful because he's potentially still listening right now.
Well, just don't send him over to my house. We're fine. We got plenty of spiders over here as it is.
Matt, I don't have any say on what happens here. Seriously, but it's like that. I don't know if that's exactly what it was, but it's eerily similar to that.
Well, that's what you get here at 41 is the mic. You get all of your Chiefs coverage. You get all of your spider coverage.
Yeah, I hope it's a one-off on the spider coverage.
Next week, if we can, we'll go to a 3-box with the spider.
How we can do that? I've only got one camera.
We'll find a way to make it work.
All right. We called our Spidey cam.
Everybody, have a great week. We will see you later next week. We will be back for another roundup of OTAs.
Bye-bye now.
You've been listening to 41 is the Mic, presented by KSHP 41, your home of the Chiefs and Chiefs Digest.